Wild Wild West is basically the movie everyone who loves Keanu Reeves and The Matrix should be thankful for. Seriously. Will Smith was the very first actor offered the role of Neo. He actually thought about it for a while, but in the end decided that Wild Wild West looked more interesting and, more importantly, way safer. After all, it was being directed by the guy behind Men in Black, someone Smith already trusted and had a great working relationship with. Meanwhile, The Matrix was coming from these two relatively unknown filmmakers with a pitch that sounded strange to say the least. Years later, Smith would openly call turning down The Matrix the biggest mistake of his career. Although, to be fair, he also said that if he had actually known what the movie was about, he would have signed on immediately. But according to Smith, the Wachowskis' pitch focused less on the story and more on the technical stuff. Shooting with 50 cameras at once, being suspended on wires, surrounded by chroma keys. So from his perspective, none of it really made sense. He didn't see the movie, he saw a headache, and honestly, at the time, a lot of people passed on The Matrix, so it's hard to say Smith was uniquely wrong here. Jean Reno turned it down too and chose Roland Emmerich's Godzilla instead. If he hadn't, Agent Smith would have looked very different, and Hugo Weaving might have kept playing Australian farmers. Russell Crowe also passed on Morpheus for reasons nobody has ever fully explained. And that's not even mentioning Sandra Bullock, who later claimed she was offered the role of Neo, which raises an even bigger question. If that happened, who exactly would have been Trinity? Development on Wild Wild West actually started way back in the early 90s. Warner Brothers put Richard Donner, the director behind the Lethal Weapon franchise, in charge. Naturally, the lead role was meant for Mel Gibson, but after about a year and a half of wrestling with the project, both Donner and Gibson walked away due to constant budget issues. The studio refused to let them include several key ideas that would have pushed the movie fully into comedy. Donner and Gibson felt those ideas were essential. Without them, the movie just wasn't the movie they wanted to make. So they bailed, and almost immediately went off and made Maverick, which quietly absorbed a bunch of those rejected ideas. Honestly, if you watch Maverick today, it's not that hard to imagine what Donner and Gibson's version of Wild Wild West might have looked like. Once Donner and Gibson were out, Tom Cruise stepped in, and Cruise didn't just show interest, he hovered. He got involved in script development, clearly saw himself in the role, and yes, probably already picked out a very specific cowboy hat. Cruise didn't want the movie to become a full-blown comedy, which the studio actually liked. For a while, Wild Wild West was dangerously close to going into production. Then in 1995, Cruise walked away and jumped ship to Mission Impossible, which seemed like the smarter bet. After that, Wild Wild West went straight to the shelf, where it stayed until 1997 when Barry Sonnenfeld entered the picture. With Sonnenfeld on board, the script was rewritten again, this time leaning harder into scale and fantasy elements. And that's when Will Smith finally joined the project. On paper, Wild Wild West looked like a guaranteed hit. It had everything: one of the biggest movie stars on the planet, a popular TV series as a starting point, a massive budget for the time, and a director who had already delivered a huge blockbuster with Men in Black. From the outside, this thing looked bulletproof. Once the cast, director, and budget were locked in, almost everyone assumed it was going to be a massive success. Almost everyone. Robert Conrad, one of the stars of the original Wild Wild West TV series, wasn't buying it. He was offered a small role in the movie and was personally invited by Sonnenfeld. But after reading the script, Conrad flat out refused. He thought the script was awful and showed zero respect for the original show. At the time, Conrad was nearly 70, so his warnings that this movie was heading straight for disaster were mostly brushed off as grumpy old man energy. As history would prove, he wasn't wrong. The movie crashed hard at the box office, a very loud, very public crash, and yet it could have been even worse. Originally, the budget was lower, somewhere between 120 and 130 million, but early test screenings were brutal. Audiences had no idea what kind of movie they were watching. Was it a comedy? Was it steampunk? Was it taking itself seriously or not at all? One of the biggest complaints was the tone. The movie often felt weirdly serious, which made the dumb jokes, the ones that were clearly supposed to land, feel awkward instead of funny. After hearing the feedback, the studio panicked, drew its conclusions, and ordered massive reshoots. The goal was simple: make it funnier. And that's when everything changed. That's when the giant spider showed up, and that's when Will Smith started joking every chance he got. According to Kevin Smith, the director behind Clerks and Dogma, the spider wasn't even Sonnenfeld's idea. He claims it was forced into the movie by producer John Peters. Originally, the giant spider was supposed to appear in Superman Lives, the Superman movie Tim Burton was planning in the late 90s. Nicolas Cage was already cast, but after Batman and Robin bombed, the studio pulled the plug. Peters, who worked with Burton, was apparently so obsessed with the idea of a giant mechanical spider that he refused to let it die and shoved it straight into Wild Wild West instead. It's honestly hard to pinpoint exactly how so many talented people who genuinely wanted the movie to work managed to derail it this badly. Even Will Smith, famous for commanding huge paychecks, took a serious pay cut, despite the production budget ballooning to around $170 million. For Enemy of the State, released just a year earlier, Smith earned $14 million. For Wild Wild West, he made only $7 million. In the end, the movie grossed just $222 million worldwide, while total cost landed somewhere around $240 million. There's a long-running rumor that Wild Wild West should have made even less money in the US, but it accidentally benefited from one very specific trick. A lot of kids bought tickets to Wild Wild West and then tried to sneak into South Park Bigger Longer and Uncut or American Pie. Both of those movies were rated R, while Wild Wild West was PG-13, meaning theaters sold tickets to teenagers without any problems. And yes, all three movies were playing at the same time. Sometimes box office math has absolutely nothing to do with the movie itself. In multiple interviews, Will Smith later admitted that he knew the film wasn't very good, which is why he was genuinely shocked when it pulled in nearly $50 million during its opening weekend in the US. Over time, Smith publicly apologized several times to Robert Conrad, the original TV star who had refused to do a cameo and never stopped criticizing the movie. Smith's explanation was simple: they didn't mean to mess it up. It just happened. The original screenwriters, S.S. Wilson and Brent Maddock, have also been very vocal about what went wrong. According to them, almost nothing from their original script survived into the final version. Their script was a serious, mysterious Western with a hint of mysticism. What ended up on screen was a chaotic action comedy with giant spiders. They even tried to have their names removed from the credits, but contractual obligations made that impossible. In the end, both writers won the Razzie for Worst Screenplay, which is especially ironic, considering they were once praised for Tremors and Short Circuit. Robert Conrad actually showed up to the Razzie ceremony and personally accepted 3 awards. According to him, it was his way of publicly demonstrating just how badly the filmmakers had treated the original material. And here's the funniest part. Despite the box office disaster and the pile of Razzies, the title song Wild Wild West, performed by Will Smith himself, topped the Billboard charts for several weeks. Say what you want about the movie, the soundtrack absolutely worked. Years later, Barry Sonnenfeld, Will Smith, Kevin Kline, and Salma Hayek have all openly admitted that they hate this movie. Hayek believes her character was completely wasted and deserved far more screen time in development. Kevin Kline has been especially blunt, saying he's way too good an actor for that garbage, and that he was essentially tricked into the project after being shown a very different script. Smith and Sonnenfeld mostly blame the reshoots in the studio for destroying the original vision. Ted Levine, who signed on back when Tom Cruise was still attached to the lead role, also regularly criticizes the final film. According to him, the script was genuinely strong in the mid-90s, but it kept getting rewritten over and over again until it turned into something completely ridiculous. Levine believes the biggest problem was Will Smith himself, saying Smith was badly miscast and ended up in the movie mainly because of his friendship with the director and his superstar status. Actors weren't the only ones pointing fingers at Warner Brothers. Many Hollywood analysts believe the studio had already given up on Wild Wild West while it was still being made. Rumor has it that once the movie entered reshoots, people inside Warner Brothers started calling it the Black Sheep. That reputation spread fast and the movie was basically declared dead on arrival. As a result, nobody from the studio's quality control department wanted to touch it. People had to be forced to work on it. And this kind of thing isn't rare in Hollywood. Sylvester Stallone has talked about this exact phenomenon many times. According to him, it's incredibly common for a single production problem, something that could have been fixed, to get a movie instantly labeled as toxic. Once that happens, everyone backs away and the film is left to rot. The failure of Wild Wild West seriously damaged Barry Sonnenfeld's directing career and effectively ended Kevin Kline's run as a leading man. Throughout the 90s, Kline had starred in multiple box office hits. Will Smith, strangely enough, walked away completely unharmed. After Wild Wild West, he starred in 2 more flops in a row, The Legend of Bagger Vance and Ali. And yet, with each new role, his paycheck only got bigger. And just like The Lone Ranger, Wild Wild West was originally planned as a trilogy. Same story with Cowboys and Aliens, which flopped just as loudly and was also supposed to launch a franchise. At some point, you start to wonder, maybe the fantasy western just isn't a genre audiences are begging for. And maybe throwing insane amounts of money at it isn't the smartest idea? That was Frameback. See you on the next Rewind.